Hello everyone, welcome to ChessVisor, your wise choice to improve your chess. In today's video, I am going to show you a very famous game played in 1958-1959 US Championship round number 6, and this game was played between James Fischer and Samuel Reshesvsky. So this game is very special because it's a trap game, and Fischer executed his cue trap in this game, and after that this game is known for Fischer's trap in the accelerated dragon variation of the Sicilian. So without much delay, we will look at the game. And if you are new here and watching the channel for the first time, and consider subscribing to the channel and press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. So here Fischer was handling the white pieces and he opened the game with e4, and Reshesvsky went c5, the Sicilian defense, and Fischer normally played knight f3, knight c6, the open, trying to get into the open Sicilian. And here after d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and then g6. This move represents the accelerated variation of the dragon Sicilian. So here the idea is very simple. Black wants to feint the dot square bishop to put pressure along these dot squares in the center of the board, and it is very simple to play against this setup, and Fischer would like to play. And even there are a few other games where Fischer completely crushed the dragon variation, and this is a little earlier, for example, dragon will take around 2-3 moves extra to feint the bishop, but here we are going with the feint shadow variation with the fourth move itself. That's the main difference. Otherwise more or less the same setup. So here after bishop e3, the idea is very simple. He wants to go to sometimes queen to d2, and then queen side castling. After knight c3, the bishop will go to h6. Maybe he will exchange the dot square bishop, and then the natural attack would be like pawn to f3, g4, and then h4, h5, sack mate. So it is known for everyone, right? So knight f6 here, okay. So and then knight c3. So knight f6 calls the knight c3 move because the pawn is undefended, right? So and then bishop to g7 developing, and now bishop to c4. It's very critical move for Fischer. He always plays bishop to c4. He wants to put pressure on this diagonal, especially the f7 pawn. So that's why he plays this move. And even there is one variation named after him. So bishop to c4 variation is there, that is called Fischer Susin. So here in this game he played a castling. Reshesvsky castled on this seventh move, and after this Fischer wantedly retreated the bishop to b3, because the bishop on c4 is undefended, and you know it, whenever a piece is undefended, definitely there will be some type of tactics will be coming on the piece, right? So he is retreating the bishop, but still he is keeping the eye on the f7. And now after this, black, instead of trying to develop his rest of his pieces, say for example he needs to figure out this bishop, and this rook belongs to c file, that's why you are playing the Sicilian, right? So he needs to do that, maybe moves like d6, and then maybe bishop here, something he has to do about these pieces. But in this position he is moving the piece for the second time, and that's why he got punished with our cue trap after this move. So here the trap already been set here. So he is moving the second time the same piece. He is against he is violating the principle, right? Opening principle. And here Fischer started with e5. What's the point of e5? Because the knight was defending the e5 point, and now the knight is not defending, and that is why we are highlighting that you are now you have to react for this threat first before you capture here. See, there are multiple variations possible here. The first one is, the obvious one is to take the bishop. So we will check that first. Knight takes b3. Now after e takes f6, you can take the rook, but then we are capturing on g7, and we are threatening the rook now. So there is no time to save the knight, and you can even insert this in between move. Okay, so after this we can simply take with our knight, or even with the queen. So because of this threat, we have to react for this, because he is giving the check now. So this is one of the variation. So here the trap set already I said no. So this is one variation. The second variation is that if you think about moving the knight to somewhere else, for example, in the game he played knight to e8 all the way to home square. So here if we think about moving the knight to h5, after pawn to g4, the knight is trapped. Okay, still black is losing the game. And he thought for a while and he played knight to e8. What's the problem in knight to e8? We can place sacrifice move, that is that's why the bishop is very very important on this diagonal. In every e4 opening, that is king's pawn opening, you always look for this type of tactics on f7 or h7. But in this position, Fischer spotted this excellent tactics, that is bishop takes f7 check. Now as a black player you have two options, or three options I would say. The obvious one is to take with the king. Okay, so we will check the first variation with the king takes f7, and once we take here, we can go ahead and do this beautiful knight sacrifice again in the center of the board with the knight e6. Now the problem is, by playing this knight move, the queen has only few escape squares, and one of the escape square is now black with his own knight. That's the problem. And obviously you cannot touch the knight. It's because of this variation. So actually in the game, this is what happened in the game. So we have to check the other possibilities. For example, if you take with the king greedily, then you are getting checkmate in next 5 to 6 moves. Say for example, we can give this queen to d5 check, and king f5 is the only move, and after g4, king takes g4 is another only move. And here we have multiple checking ideas. Say for example, rook to g1 is most logical. So you are also putting the rook into the game. So rook g1 check, king h4, and now you have queen e4 check, bishop to g5 check. A lot of ideas are there. So I'll go with the bishop to g5 check. So after that, king h5, queen d1 check, and the rook has to block the check. And after that, queen takes f3 is a checkmate. So just the trap set up in a 10th move, and in the next 6-7 moves you lost the game with a checkmate. So that's how this trap will work. So this is about only the king takes f7. In case when we sack, or when Fischer sacked the bishop on f7, if we take the bishop with the rook, then there is this variation, that is knight e6. Same. So same thing will happen again. The queen has got no escape squares now. If you are capturing the knight, you are losing the queen now. So it's a reasonable position just in the 10th move of the game. So let's go back. But in the game, Reshesvsky, after king takes f7, he played knight e6. Fischer played, and here he simply took the knight, and the game continued. So let's check the rest of the game also. So after d takes e6, and Fischer went on to capture the queen. So knight c6 hitting the queen. So queen comes back, queen to d2, and then bishop takes e5, and then castles. So if you look at this position carefully, if you assess it further, or if you evaluate the position, it's very very simple to evaluate. Okay, the rook versus rook is available, and the rook versus rook, and knight versus knight, bishop versus bishop, and for the queen he has got only 2 pieces and I think 1 pawn. That's not a, I think that is also not a healthy pawn, right? Yeah, I think equal pawns, and the pawn structure is not that good comparing with the Fischer's pawn structure. So this is how we have to evaluate, and this imbalance is a very big advantage for Fischer, like player like Fischer. So let's continue the game. So knight d6, bishop f4, trying to, whenever you are something you are up, okay, say for example you are up 2 pawns up or a piece up, so only 2-3 things you should consider as a strategy. The first and foremost thing, you should try to attack the first one. Second thing is you should try to exchange the pieces with most active pieces, your pieces with your opponent's most active pieces. And third one is you should not exchange the pawns. So these are the 3 key strategies you should follow whenever you have the extra material, that is called realizing the material advantage. Bishop f4, knight to c4, queen e2, attacking both the pieces. So bishop takes f4, and then queen takes c4, hitting the bishop. So king g7, defending in a different manner. So knight e4, centralizing the knight, bishop to c7. So Reshesvsky here is trying to coordinate his rest of the pieces to hold against Fischer. So knight c5, rook f6 is a very very strong player. He won almost against 7 world champions including Fischer. So he's a very very strong player, and one of the frequent rival against Fischer. So here rook f6 and then c3, boxing out this knight future. So and then pawn to e5. So rook a d1, putting the rook in the open file. Knight to d8, rerouting the knight to a different square or the better square. Knight goes d7. And here if you clearly see black's responses, he will try hard to try to avoid the exchanges, but Fischer he will be forcing the exchanges here and there. So rook c6, queen h4, rook e6, and now knight to c5. So after this he played rook f6 and now knight e4, again threatening the rook. The rook goes to f4. The problem is you cannot go back to e6 now because of this knight move. So you are hitting here and here, so that is going to be problem for black. So here rook f4 and now queen takes e7 check, and now rook has to go back. Rook f7, queen a3, and now knight c6. So knight d6, bishop takes d6, rook takes d6. Now one pair of minor pieces has been exchanged. I think yeah, two pairs of minor pieces exchanged. Now against again now it is queen versus the two minor pieces. So rook takes d6, bishop f5. Finally he developed the light square bishop. So b4, rook f8, and connected the rooks. b5, kicking the knight. So knight goes home. Rook to d5, trying to win the pawn, and knight f7, trying to defending it. So rook to c5, so trying to infiltrate on the 7th rank. So a6. So in this position I would like to highlight this capture here. Actually Fischer can do this here in this position. The idea is very simple. After rook takes e6 you can play this tactical move. So you are threatening the pawn, and once say for example black plays rook to c8, we can play this move, the tactical move, rook takes e5. If we capture here, I'm going to get the rook like this, and it's better for white. So it's a completely winning position. So here Fischer doesn't want to open the position, so he closed with b6, and in fact his pawn is just 2 moves away from queening, and only thing is he has to deflect this pawn, right? So that's what he will do in the rest of the moves. So bishop e4, trying to defending, and rook e1, and now bishop to c6. Obviously most of the players will think about sacrificing the rook, and Fischer does the same here. So rook takes c6, b takes c6, and now the b pawn rolls. So b7, rook b8, stopping the pawn, and now queen takes a6. Now we got 2 pawns now, and this is a weak pawn already, so we will get that pawn soon. And again once we get this pawn will be rolling, so that's going to be dangerous for black. So knight to d8, and now rook b1. So we have to defend, and rook f7. Now the pawn is surrounded by 3 pieces, and no more we cannot defend no more. So here after h3 he simply took the pawn. So after this rook takes b7, and as I mentioned earlier, actually we want to exchange the pieces, right? So that's why we are going into this. So rook takes b7, and after queen to a8, and here Reshesvsky resigned the game. It's because you can continue the game. For example, it's actually double attack now. In case if you want to defend the knight, you can do that. For example, rook to d7, and after that we can simply push our passer, and there is nothing black can do here. Say for example he can reroute his pieces. For example, knight b7 and then queen to e8, again the double attack. Rook to d1 check, king h2, queen to knight d6, and now queen to d7 check. You are actually x-raying the rook. That means this knight is pinned now. So king h6, and now pawn to a5, rook to d2. That's the only move to defend the position, otherwise you will be pinned forever. So pawn to a5, rook d2, and now a6, and there is no stopping here. And after knight to e4, we can even sacrifice the queen for the rook here, because the knight won't stop our pawn. So knight takes d2, a7, and then after knight c4 we get the new queen and win the game. And that's why, considering all this short of ending, Reshesvsky and Fischer knows this very well. So that's why after queen to a8 Samuel Reshesvsky resigned the game. So what do you think about this game? And let me know your ideas, thoughts, and your suggestions in the comment section below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are watching this video till the end, and thank you so much. And you are new here, please consider subscribing to the channel and press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. As usual, this is Chess Wiser, your wise choice to improve your chess.